Alien Earth. Just saying the title out loud makes me cringe. And not because it's another unnecessary spin-off show. Not just because it messes with canon. The problems run much deeper. The entire premise of the show is broken. And it's not the aliens or the characters or the plot I'm going to be ranting about. There are many other creators out there already who are talking about that stuff, and I agree with most of them. No, I'm here to rant about something that no one else seems to be covering, so far as I know. Alien Earth is stupid because of its naive theory of corporate economics. If you saw my last video, you know that I think the sequels to Alien and its extended universe ruined the alien, a cosmic horror, something that was supposed to be terrifying and unknowable, by flattening it down into a xenomorph, something comfortably familiar and totally manageable psychologically. A big space insect with a hive culture. The only time it's even scary now was when there are dozens coming out to you in a mindless parasite swarm, and even that gets very boring very quickly. All the mystery of the alien, all of its potential complexity, got brutally flattened into something boring and, let's admit it, kind of silly. Alien Earth has done this again, only this time the oversimplification isn't biological, it's economic and political. But the results are just as disappointing. A pedestrian show that's intellectually insulting and very hard to watch. The premise? 5 megacorporations rule the whole Earth. No governments, just companies. And at first glance, I guess maybe that feels kind of believable. After all, real-life corporations are actually, in fact, terrifyingly powerful. What could possibly stop them from running everything if they wanted to? Why not run with that idea for a science fiction premise? The techno-dystopia, where government power is all but obviated, has been a part of science fiction for decades. It does kind of feel like our future. But no, it isn't. Not if we're trying to be realistic. The corporate power suggested in the Alien movie universe, and in most techno-dystopia flicks, if we're being honest, was supposed to be subtle. A pro forma concern for human life on paper that's ignored the moment those rules stand in the way of profits.
Dick, I'm very disappointed.
The reason the first Alien film worked so well in this respect was because there was a veneer of paternalism to the company at first blush. The Nostromo was not a death trap. It was like any modern industrial workplace we've seen, with safety features and good coffee and comfortable recreation spaces. Even the Nostromo's architecture, warning decals, hazard codes, implies OSHA-style regulation. But everyone knew better, both the characters and us, the audience. There's safety rules about quarantine, and perhaps even the comfort and safety features built into their ship were almost certainly statutory labor protections imposed by the government. Everyone knew that people like them were nothing but numbers to their bosses back home. If the company instead were the government, though, they'd actually have the power of life and death over their employees. What company adherence to these mandated workplace and safety regulations seemed to suggest is that the company is going to have to answer for every one of their deaths. The evil of their carefully executed plan was in how it would inevitably result in either bringing them home their alien monster or giving them solid legal cover for their loss, including the crew's deaths. The characters in Alien are horrified that the company would send them in to die as they did, and yet they're not really all that surprised.
Damn company. What about our lives, you son of a bitch?
Ripley, though enraged, is hardly disillusioned. And this depiction of corporate life felt realistic to us. We just know that a sufficiently powerful company in our real world would absolutely think they could get away with doing what Weyland-Yutani does, crew, expendable, and all. This kind of corporate greed and inhumanity already exists right now, with no need for additional dystopic embellishments. There was no need to massively rewrite the world's socio-political order to tell an alien story on Earth. We all know the scenario in Alien was already realistic without it. Now, if I'm going to be charitable with the show and defend their creative choices, I'd have to suspect that the creators of Alien Earth must have thought the 5-company world they imagined was plausible or maybe even necessary for the story, because we've always seen Weyland-Yutani acting as the only authority with material power anywhere the story took us. We never saw Earth proper, but in Alien Romulus, for instance, we did see a world where no one could even quit their job or leave the planet without express permission, which was often very hard to get. The company was in total control of their workers' lives, and they had no apparent recourse to complain or sue or resist. But this doesn't in any way imply that life is like this on Earth. In Alien Romulus, we're not seeing a megacorporation controlling an entire civilization. What we are seeing is a company town. A thing that totally really used to exist. Company towns are isolated from the rest of humanity's socio-political world and, like in Alien Romulus, were often ruled with cruel corporate impunity. This is not unrealistic at all. Company towns were a very real part of our history. Steel mills in Appalachia, coal mines in Illinois, lumber camps in Oregon. Powerful companies really did build their own towns with schools, houses, grocery stores, etc., etc. They even printed their own currencies. They controlled their workers' comings and goings, their rights to assemble and speak, and they suppressed their rights to protest and sometimes killed them if they resisted. This was real. But company towns were far away from ordinary cities and towns, and their political power never expanded beyond exactly what was necessary for the company's business needs. Unlike civic municipalities, which grew, expanded, merged, and often amassed huge populations over time, all of the company towns like Pullman, Illinois, or Thurber, Texas, eventually collapsed. They became symbols of failed corporate paternalism. Appalachian coal camps all either emptied out or incorporated into municipalities as regular towns. No company town ever stays one for long. Not one, not ever. Even the infamous British East India Company, which governed much of India for over a century, finally begged Britain to take the burden off its hands in 1858. So what I'm saying is that Alien Romulus does not, in fact, set up the premise for Alien Earth at all. If that's what this is based on, the showrunners are way off base. Alien Earth is over-the-top madness. The 5 companies seem to be ruling the Earth not because they have to, but because they actually choose to. Because governments yielded power to them and they willingly accepted it? But corporations do not crave direct political power. They build company towns only when they have no choice, because no government is out there where they need their workers to do work for them. Historically, companies who ran company towns hated that they had to govern the people living there. Why? Because as history, economics, and psychology all show us, government is expensive, it's messy, and it's a surefire way to foment resentment from employees, disrupt production, and impede those all-important profits. And the longer they have to govern people's lives, the more their bureaucracy bogs down and they start losing money. They want to influence their governments such that they can more easily and cheaply make a profit off of their constituents, but they don't want to rule their lives. In the long term, businesses just can't operate at a profit and also remain successful as governments. And governments, conversely, can't long function as businesses either. It's a formula that's been tried again and again, and it's failed again and again. Government employment for an entire society. It always costs more to force people to work than can be generated by simply taxing the wealth generated by their free labor in a free labor market. The Soviet Union found this one out the hard way. The Russian saying used to be, "We pretend to work and they pretend to pay us." It was a system where no one really profited and where no one was ever very happy with the status quo. The Chinese government, by contrast, figured this out sooner than the Soviets did and were thus able to generate separate corporate entities to pit against each other and themselves, and thus save their economy from suffering the same fate as the USSR's. A healthy, sustainable economic ecosystem requires independent employers, independent employees, and a government that's powerful enough to oversee it all and call balls and strikes. There are other economic systems out there in the past and present, but there is only one that has ever generated the kind of wealth on display in alien Earth. An economic and political ecosystem that is a symbiosis of innumerable diverse and mutually competing capitalist entities operating under the stabilizing power of a strong central government whose legitimacy is upheld and leveraged for advantage by all the parties involved. In other words, immense corporate power exists, not despite government power, but because of government power. But beyond simply enforcing the rules of healthy competition and imposing social order on the workers and employers, governments provide both the foundation for and the tools for commercial activity. In practice, taxation and regulation create the very arena in which markets can exist at all. Without governments, for instance, there would be no monetary system. A dollar is only worth a dollar's worth of goods and services because the government demands taxes from everyone in dollars, forcing everyone to use their government-issued money in all transactions, both public and private. Even megacorporations can't escape taxation completely. Moreover, governments themselves regulate how much their money is worth, a power no corporation could possibly be expected to wield responsibly themselves. Even if the 5 companies collaborated on monetary policy, it would be impossible to persuade the masses, or even their own elite constituencies, that it was being done impartially, particularly in times of economic downturn, without third-party governments to legitimize their wealth externally. The elites would lose legitimacy, and it would bring the whole system crashing down. A CEO in the real world can say about his million-dollar bonuses, "The market rewarded me, and the state taxes me fairly." That's a narrative that most people can psychologically accept. Only a government can provide the perception of a level playing field where this narrative can make sense. On a corporate-governed Earth, such elites wouldn't be seen as winners of a legit game anymore. They'd look like feudal lords with no justification for their status. And you know how things ended for feudal lords. Feudal peasants, unless they are so desperately poor they lack the physical strength to fight, which, again, is not what we see on alien Earth, always rebel against any feudal overlord whose rule they've decided is unjust. Our socioeconomic order works better because modern workers don't feel so desperately poor. They don't feel cheated enough by the system to think it might be better to tear it completely down, as happened in previous systems of economics. Think of it this way. Today, one might calculate the economic value of a brain surgeon as worth, let's say, 100 janitors cleaning the hospital's halls, and yet both men can work shoulder to shoulder without class friction, because the doctor and the janitor both kind of accept that premise. The janitor, however low his status is relative to the doctor's, believes the ladder of potential success had really been available to him. He simply didn't choose it. He could have chosen a path where he did more to further his education. He can likely think of at least one or even several opportunities which he passed on, which might have made him a successful entrepreneur. Perhaps he's even still aspiring to get that better education or job training or a business venture, and his janitor job is just temporary to him. Or at least that's what he tells himself. Neither janitor nor doctor thus feel he nor the other were given his status unjustly or were unfairly punished or elevated despite their efforts or lack thereof. The doctor simply made better choices and worked harder and proved his merit. Both men believe they received the paycheck they've earned. But if this were a corporate-run Earth, few would believe this status mobility actually exists. We even see this illustrated in alien Earth.
My grandmother was very fond of you, you know.
I'm grateful.
Whatever he wants, he gets.
No one in this show, believes that wealth is earned in open markets with fair competition, everyone knows that status is most often assigned to a pre-selected few by opaque bureaucracies. Wealth and privilege go only to nepo babies with the highest connections and lowest ethical values. The idea of success in business or even in life is a joke in this show. And no one would stand for this. Not for a year, not for a decade, and definitely not for the centuries this system is imagined to be lasting, given the timeline involved in the alien universe. Extremes of wealth and poverty are okay in a society, so long as most people think it's okay. Revolutions don't erupt from inequality alone, but from illegitimacy, when elites can't justify their high places in society anymore. Once inequality in a society stops feeling earned, it swiftly begins to feel intolerable. And some might say, we in the West are looking at just such a situation now with our own income and inequality issues. And maybe we are. But I assure you, if our own governments collapse and disappear overnight, the new world won't look like alien Earth, with businesses stepping in and taking over, but sadly rather something more like Kevin Costner's The Postman from 1997, where we, a fallen people, nostalgically cling to the lost complexity of our former civilization by the skin of our teeth, utterly unable to organize ourselves without that powerful government to move us forward again. It's not a coincidence that bureaucratically complex corporate businesses evolved right alongside bureaucratically complex democratic governments, which evolved right alongside ideologically complex philosophical conceptualizations of what we are and aren't entitled to in the way of individual human and legal rights. All of these intellectual technologies intersected in history, and their interplay with each other is exactly what produced the economic, political, and social forces that continue to uphold and sustain modern life in the West. And we all know this, at least instinctively. So, Alien Earth's bizarro political corporatism not only makes no sense on its face, it's also just stupid. If in Alien, Weyland-Yutani actually ruled a fifth of the Earth back home, they wouldn't need to be sneaky about how they went about getting the alien. There'd be no need for top-secret memos, no need to make the whole thing some shady, deniable secret op. They'd have zero worries they might get their specimen impounded. Who's going to impound the specimens of a corporation which also enforces the impound laws? Another corporation? In their own company's spaceports? If that were possible, Alien Earth's plot wouldn't even have happened in the first place. The very fact that the company in Alien has to have a secret special order buried in the corporate computer's memory banks, the fact that they had to secretly divert the Nostromo without warning the crew, the fact that they felt they needed to plant a fake android crew member to mislead the human crew into complying, all this proves that strong governments must still exist in the alien universe, or the company would have no reason at all to fear that their crew members might rebel, sue, or criminally prosecute them.
Corporal Hickses.
This operation is under military jurisdiction, and Hicks is next in chain of command. Am I right?
Yeah.
You really think you can get a dangerous organism like that past ICC quarantine?
How can they impound it if they don't know about it?
But they will know better, Burke. For me. Just like they'll know that you were responsible for the deaths of 157 colonists.
What if that ship didn't even exist? Did you ever think about that? I didn't know. So now if I went and made a major security situation out of it, everybody steps in, administration steps in, and there's no exclusive rights for anybody. Nobody wins. So I made a decision and it was wrong. It was a bad call, Ripley.
Well, I'm gonna make sure that they nail you right to the wall for this. You're not gonna sleaze your way out of this one. Right to the wall.
Massive private influence over regulators and lawmakers? Sure, the alien universe was full of that. But now it turns out the company is the government, and it governs a fifth of the whole world that the crew of the Nostromo came from? No! It makes no sense! Just like the creature itself, unethical corporate power only works when it's lurking in the shadows, exploiting gaps in the government's laws and moral weaknesses in its human agents, politicians, and enforcers. Again, referencing Rob Ager, he has a terrific video on his channel exploring how corporate power really operates in the alien universe. Alien, the corporate monster. And his point is that the menacing power of the corporation looms large all around the characters throughout the movie, driving them towards a horrible fate invisibly at every turn until Ash's true identity is revealed and the company's monstrous ruse is exposed. Rob, of course, could have no way of knowing Alien Earth would be the next chapter of the Alien series when he created his video, but I'm sure he would agree with me about this. Once you drag corporate greed into the daylight and make it the basis for the whole system, it stops being frightening. Instead, it just looks dumb. And that's why Alien Earth is stupid, and for more than the reasons you probably thought. Well, if you enjoyed this essay, please check out my previous deep dive into the lost lore of Alien, when the creature was still a cosmic horror before the sequels flattened it into nothing but a big ugly space bug. Because whether it's biology or political economy, when you forget how systems actually work, your story always suffers. Thanks for listening.